was that the best thing was to do everything we possibly could to make sure that we had the strongest progressive platform. Now, this is which I think is really critically important. We need to stay focused on the issue at hand, and that is a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. At the present time, you have 85% of Democrats, 70% of the American public, and even 52% of Republicans who support a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. So the question is ultimately, is that how do we galvanize people and get people motivated? We know ultimately that in over 3 weeks, Black Lives Matter did an extraordinary job. Statistics show anywhere between 15 to 26 million people came out to support addressing issues of police brutality. So how do we bring all of that energy together on issues of a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system, tuition-free public college universities, paid equity for women, paid family and medical leave, a $15 minimum wage, dealing with income and wealth inequality, and dealing with environmental issues, dealing with animal rights issues, and all these other issues. That's extraordinarily important, and we got to figure out exactly how we got to do it. And from my perspective, what we need to do right now is ultimately use the media. We need to understand how alternative media works. So at present time right now, CNN has about 1 million viewers. And I know so many people that don't even turn on the TV. So the question is how do we bring those 26.7 million people that are part of our network? Meaning the fact that if you look at Bernard Sanders' website in terms of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Foursquare, all these other places, YouTube, you have 26.7 million people that are not activated. So how do we in fact activate those folks? So that's what I want to talk to you guys about, how we do that. How do we build a strong media empire? That's one issue. And then understand about marketing and messaging, about how we market and message the issues that we hold so dear, regarding how we make it very, very clear that we need to have a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. So we know ultimately that, in fact, that we have so many people ultimately do not pay attention to CNN. So what we need to do is we need to stream. We need to start streaming. That means reaching out to various, whether it's Roku, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Hulu, and there's all these other different places. So we have a situation where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we have progressive content. So it would be very exciting when you turn on your phone or you turn on your computer, that instantaneously you have this information readily available, that you have shows that talk about what's going on in Sweden, what's going on in terms of Finland, in Scandinavia, and all over Europe. So we understand the reality of really what's going on. Because unfortunately, when you turn on CNN or MSNBC or, oh my goodness, even Fox or other places, whatever, you don't get an understanding of what really goes on in terms of the rest of the world. So it's critically important that we address that issue. And I can talk more in depth about how we're going to do that. The other issue, of course, is number 2 is dealing with marketing and messaging. So what do I mean by that? I mean, right now, ultimately, we have the strength and we have the momentum to a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. The problem is right now, ultimately, is we're not doing a good job in marketing and messaging. And as I talk to more and more people, what we need to do is we need to talk about patriotism and love of country. Because what happens is the Republican Party has co-opted that term. So we need to take back that issue in terms of, we obviously love our country, and we obviously believe in a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. And we can talk specifically about the whole essence of freedom, that is the essence of what Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system is about. Meaning that you have a job and you choose that you want to leave, you have the freedom to do so. Right now, a lot of people stay at their job for 15, 20, 25 years because of the fact they can't leave, because they're terrified. They believe they're not going to have any health insurance for a long while if, in fact, they get another job. So we got to create an environment where people understand the relationship between freedom and healthcare. So that's one of the things. The other interesting issue we need to do, though, we need to delve in at a very deep level and talk about what's going on in terms of our society. Right now, people are profoundly numb for a variety of reasons. As a direct result of the coronavirus, there is a lot of isolation. There's a lot of despair. We know very clearly right now that there's the highest rate of childhood abuse, spousal abuse, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, eating disorders, all these other things, because it's so unnatural to not interact with people. So what happens, there's a lot of deleterious effects that occur in people, and people don't know how really to deal with this issue. So we have to understand that very clearly, but also understand that our media creates an environment where really we don't even understand what reality is. And particularly with Trump is lies. He's a pathological liar, that he lies all the time, that people have no understanding about what reality even is. And then we have the issue of what constitutes normality. If you look at normal 160 years ago was the fact that it was, quote, normal that women did not have a right to vote. We know ultimately that in terms, it was normal a couple hundred years ago that in fact, that folks were enslaved. We know ultimately that it was normal that in fact that people didn't have any rights regarding a 35-hour workday. So, but we're now in 2020, and normal, unbelievably, is the fact that we have millions of people who have no health insurance. We have millions of more who are underinsured. We have a situation in terms of colleges that people are going bankrupt as a result of having to pay for college debt, to pay for medical debt. We have 20% of our children who are living in poverty. We have half of America who's living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, this is absolutely insane. So we need to now understand, basically, how do we create an environment to galvanize people and get people energized and motivated. And I want to hear from you folks about exactly what to do. But from my perspective, basically what we need to do is we need to stop. So this is kind of what I talk about. If people understand, there's a guy named Roger Bannister who broke the 4-minute mile in 1941. Everyone said he could not do it. And in fact, he did it. We need to stop psychologically in our head thinking we're not able to accomplish things because of the fact that there are so many obstacles put in our way by the establishment. And we need to come together. And that's the most critical piece. So we need to stay focused and have the eye on the prize regarding a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. If we get millions and millions of people organized together and make a determination that is simply unacceptable, that any president who does not vote for a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system should not be the president of the United States. But we have to do a better job in terms of organizing. So, I've talked a lot. What I want to hear now is a better understanding and hear from people. I know we got a variety of people who are asking certain questions. So let me just go there. And then I think what would be important is that maybe we can individually, Vivian, maybe we can have people just kind of ask their specific questions about their thoughts about how we go from there. And then the other issue, which I really want to do, is I want to have other topics each week to talk about the various issues that I've addressed.
Yes, Sue, would you like to ask your question? Can I find
I asked you online, or the one I just asked now?
the one you asked me online?
Okay, yes. How can we communicate to people? I have two questions.
Good.
They're sort of related to each other. How can we communicate to people that Bernie now, what he said about if Biden implements this task force, that he'll be the most progressive. What Bernie said was if Biden, he didn't say Biden would, if Biden implements him. He's trying to encourage Biden to implement him and to implement it. I know that Bernie doesn't think that Biden is the most progressive. People are, bashing Bernie for that. He didn't mean that Biden is going to necessarily do it. More importantly, or you can answer both, more importantly is Biden said a few times that he would veto Medicare for all. So I guess the only thing to do is get enough down ballot or progressives in Congress who can override his veto. I mean, because I don't know if he's going to listen to all our, all our feelings about Medicare for all. So if you could address those.
Sure, absolutely.
Questions.
The first thing, obviously, in anything one does is they have to be organized together. And I can assure you that if we even come close terms of the level of organization and what folks have done in terms of dealing with in terms of what Black Lives Matter and other folks have done to address the issue of police brutality, we will make very serious and significant changes. Because what Joe Biden does is he looks out and he sees what's going on. So what I say very clearly to everybody basically is you need to push your politician to demand that they do certain things. And if you don't, basically, then they need to reassess, whether or not you were going to get their support. So that's the first issue in terms of a Medicare for all, single payer healthcare system. The other interesting issue, as I highlight, and this is an important one, I would love to get people's take on this, is that what we need to understand, it's Democrats and Republicans ultimately that support a Medicare for all single payer healthcare system, because a lot of Republicans don't have a lot of money either. And they have high co-payments, deductibles, premiums, as well as out-of-pocket expenses, right? So what we need to do now is we need to bring people together on that specific issue. And that requires doing exactly what we're doing right now. So if we have other people, we have 10 or 11 other people get on Zoom and get 20, 30, 40 people and bring it together, then what we can do is that we literally have a huge, huge following. Then Joe Biden is going to be in a very difficult situation, because we're going to have so many people that are going to demand that we have a Medicare for all single payer healthcare system, which is what Bernard has always articulated and has said very clearly and has pushed back on Joe Biden regarding this. We know ultimately that Joe Biden, if we're lucky, under the task force, that will probably have Medicare at 60. I don't think we can even go to 55. And so basically what we need to do very clearly is to express ourselves strongly. And as we continue to get more and more movement and we get more and more of these calls together and we talk to more and more people, we will have the ability to galvanize and to reach out particularly to members of Congress and say, ostensibly, if you don't support a Medicare for all single payer health or you're in a center, we are not going to vote for you. But in addition to all that, basically what we need to do is we need to articulate very clearly to Joe Biden's staff that what he currently has is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you have Medicare or you have the Affordable Care Act if you can't afford the high co-payments, deductibles, premiums, and out-of-pocket expenses.
Sorry, Steve.
Great. Who else we got?
Did you have a follow-up to that, Sue?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. We have the New York Health Act campaign in New York. I'm going to get more involved in that.
Yeah, please. And please fill me in as well. Everybody fill me in terms of all this stuff, because, I'm working in different areas as well regarding, Medicare for all. And I want to talk more and more about marketing and messaging, because that is a crucial piece that I think will really, really be helpful in terms of kind of the fact when people look at Medicare for all, say, oh my goodness, it's this communist plot or whatever. But when you highlight this simple terms such as freedom and love of country, people radically change their thought process regarding health. In addition to that, as we all know, it's cost effective. Small businesses like it, even large corporations like it, because we save billions of, about trillions of dollars as a result of having a Medicare for all single payer healthcare system.
Okay, somebody called
So this is
LH wants to ask a question. Oh, okay.
Okay, great.
Go on. No. MLH. Which one of you is MLH? I can't see.
I have a question. This is Maggie Cobbler. If no one else has got the floor.
Okay, great.
And thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm wondering, are you suggesting in a way that just as wearing a mask became co-opted as individual freedom versus protection of another, sort of freedom without responsibility, would we like it if Medicare for all, if someone opposed it, they're the ones that are un-American? that you saw how quickly the wearing a mask and not wearing a mask was politicized and co-opted freedom and choice. So are we looking to sort of tap into the inverse of that, sort of that having Medicare for all, the fact that some freedoms really are illusory, like a contract of illusion. It's all one-sided, that we can talk about free to choose, but we can't choose. We don't have the financial security, the home security, the food security to really, really make legitimate choice. So we're talking about sort of going from a philosophical sense of an amorphous freedom notion to sort of concretizing it, reifying it, and making it about, you will have freedom if you get this thing. Not an abstract sort of sense of it's a free country. That's what I say when people say, can you sing? I said, yes, as in it's a free country. But we want people to know we're talking about a real freedom that comes with financial security. Once you have health care, so many other choices are available to person. Am I understanding kind of where we're going in terms of the message?
Great question. I mean, as I said, I mean, this is why I think it's really important for us to have an actual task force to talk about the issue of marketing and messaging. You can look at it in two different ways. I look at it ultimately in a sense that you have to create an environment where people feel comfortable and confident to talk about Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system, because ultimately they perceive it as being socialist and or communist. So in essence, that we, regardless of what your perception is, it's the whole essence of freedom. And you know, we can talk about the different ways in which you want to think about it, but at the end of the day, basically, it provides you with freedom. Freedom, and the term freedom is so the freedom to be, you know, to be free of medical debt. You know, having the freedom to leave your job which you don't like, the freedom to start a small business, and all these other issues. So I love what you're saying, and I think that that's something that we really need to address and elaborate, because, you know, unfortunately, this is something that has not really been talked about in depth, because the Republican Party has really been,
that's right,
the key. They've been able to figure out this marketing and messaging and manipulating all these things that we need to take back, which I think we can.
Okay, Mylon has a
thank you.
question. Can I go to
Sure.
Mylon now?
Sure, of course.
Mylon. We can't hear you, Mylon. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Mylon. Try again. Try again.
Mylon, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Speak
great.
up.
A little, gotta turn up a little bit volume. Mylon, hello?
Oh, shoot. You cannot hear me? I can't believe this.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No, you're
You gotta
very,
turn up. You gotta go up a little higher. Higher. Hello, Mylon? Mylon.
Yes.
All right, good. Good.
Yeah,
You gotta
okay.
turn your volume though.
So the cost was $34 trillion. How can we present what this would actually cost? How can we present how it will save money? How can we do 5 bullet points of messaging as to how this will be financially efficient and also, therefore, patriotic? And how we can present, how can we present it as free? So, you know, if you choose not to be on Medicare and all that kind of stuff, if we can actually get down to one page and communicate it that clearly, I think it could help us so much.
Mylon, I would love for you to work on this issue, and we should definitely talk about the fact of really providing a very clear synopsis, a very clear elevator pitch that we can communicate to the American public, you know, to the media, in a way that will create a buzz and will go viral. I really think we can do it, because as I continue to talk to both Democrats and Republicans, as well as independent folks, they say that freedom is the way in which we articulate that, message. So, I'm happy to talk to people afterwards, and if people want to just get information, we can put together, as I said, a task force to address these issues directly. And then if need be, we can write, letters to the editor and delve more deeply into how we communicate that most effective. Because I'm even thinking about, Milan, I'm thinking about people like in McDowell County, West Virginia, where 79% of these folks voted for Donald Trump. And when you use the word freedom and love of country, why that's so important is because a lot of these folks, they've been beaten down so bad by the system that they want to have pride in their country. We know ultimately a lot of these folks ultimately don't have health care. They're making very little money. In terms of life expectancy, is significantly less than going to Virginia, Milan, 6 hours away. So the point is basically what we need to do is we need to tap into all the things in terms of, this is another issue at some point. I think we're going to do this. I think we're going to do next time, maybe talking about, we're going to analyze country music songs, which is fascinating. If you listen to country music, you will learn so much about the profound levels of insecurities in people. And you delve into what's going on now with this monument, and a lot of people feeling, a lot of people in the South saying it's a loss of identity. There's all these dynamics in play. And if we can ultimately empower people to say, you know what? Regardless of what it is the essence of freedom. It's everything that you believe in terms of freedom and, country music and apple pie and Dallas Cowboys or whatever it is. It's bringing all of those things together, which will in turn create an environment that there will be a buzz. And it's very hard to argue, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, that it's about freedom. And and that's, you can't contradict freedom when it comes to the issue if freedom is about creating an environment where everybody has health care, particularly when a lot of people ultimately can't afford the high co-payments, deductibles, and premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. And that's why having Medicare at 60, which of course we know that Medicare, in addition to all that, it doesn't cover eyeglasses, it doesn't cover dental care, and it doesn't cover hearing aids, it doesn't cover home health care, it doesn't cover, there's a mental health, all these other issues. So we can bring all that together, Milan, and I really think we have a real opportunity to radically change this issue and make it a really key issue, which can get a lot of media attention.
Wonderful, if we get the cost down, if we show that it's economically beneficial, and you are not free if you can't get healthcare in this country because of money. That's a big thing. You're not free. So it's something that is very doable. Yeah,
so Mila, as I said, I want to get your info. I told you I'll talk to you some more about that, and I'd love to talk to you in depth about it. But you're onto something very, very big. So as I said, and I'll just to recapitulate, I'm telling you guys, I'll send you guys one song you got to listen to. It's a guy named Lee Greenwood, and I can't remember what the song is. It's like, I think it's "Proud to Be in America." I can't remember what. So and you should listen to it because it's fascinating about what it does. Is it creates an environment of this love of the country, despite the fact that you're going nowhere in a hurry. So psychologically, it even talks about the fact that even if tomorrow you lose everything, you still have the flag, and they can't take that away from me. That is literally the issue. And when people listen to that, it's very important because that's the whole psychology that we have to address. Folks have, particularly in the right.
Okay, could Darcel maybe speak to us about things she's put on the chat? I'm
Absolutely.
Just finding her now.
Yeah, and Darcel's coming from New Zealand, so just to let you guys know that.
So, Darcel, can you talk to us about the things you put on the chat?
Yeah, so the first thing I put on there was just thinking about ways that we can increase understanding of progressive values and the social issues everyone's facing to try and get people to understand where we're coming from a solution standpoint. I found that I learned a lot of what I know about social issues from documentaries, and I feel like particularly younger generation, we love Netflix. So one of the things I watched a long time ago when I was at community college in Michigan was a documentary called Sick Around the World, and that interviewed people with different, healthcare systems and it was pretty fair and balanced, but they were trying to show that basically America's kind of broken. So I put a link to that, and then I put a link to Netflix page where you can request to add videos or movies or whatever. I've done that before for documentaries I want to be seen, but I think if a lot of us do it, then it just adds one more platform where someone who may not have otherwise understood it and finally, grasped that it's like a human right issue, that they'd be able to see it. So if we all like request that documentary be shown, and then we can do that for the future for other documentaries. And then the other thing I was saying was about this crowdfunding page I found. So basically, we need to crowdfund other progressive documentaries that are bringing to light these issues and putting them on platforms like Netflix for people that we might not otherwise be able to reach. And then, people share that with their friends. And that's a massive way to reach people, to kind of like get away from mainstream media and just get people right in their homes, like where they're bored, they want to try something new, and the more documentaries we have on there, the better. And then the other thing I was suggesting was that, how do we get people to understand? Maybe we could do like a video montage of people in different countries interviewing maybe just random people on the street. I could ask both like liberal and conservative Kiwis what they think about the US healthcare system, because I have many friends that, and some are conservative, and they even think it's insane what's happening in the US. Like they never want to go back to not having universal healthcare. And so, yeah, even conservatives here are like, what the hell is going on over there? And I feel like then Vivian could ask people in Sweden, and maybe we could make this whole montage that would get people to be like, oh, this is not normal. This is not okay. Other people around the world are looking at us like, we wish you had what we have, kind of thing. And maybe that would somehow like turn on a light bulb in people, that they could have life so much better quality of life, and not have to worry about things. And that we could like break free of that norm that is considered normal, that you rely on health insurance. We make it seem really normal that in other countries that's just insane, so kind of like trying to shift that. That's my ideas.
Oh, I think it's a great idea. And I would say that, also what we want to do is, if we can, Vivian, and we figure out how to, if we're talking to get children from Sweden to talk to children in the United States about what's going on in terms of the healthcare system or education. Because I think what happens is that kids even when they're 5, 6, 5 or 6, 7 years old, in terms of which is a really important time for self-esteem development, and they hear their parents, worried about money in terms of healthcare or education. So if there can be a back and forth conversation with children and teachers about the difference that goes on in terms of Sweden, in terms of the United States, as well as the issue in terms of even police brutality, in a whole different level, talking about what's going on in Scandinavia and other countries in terms of de-escalation of violence in relation to all this massive levels of violence that occurs in the United States of America.
Okay, that's great. Can Karen maybe talk to us about what she's put in the chat? Karen Frank.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, yay! Yay! So I saw a video montage of a bunch of people being interviewed in England, and where they're saying, say, how much should an ambulance cost? And the guy will say, oh, it's free. And then they'll tell him how much it actually costs in the US. And then the looks on their faces when they're absolutely gobsmacked as to what the real cost is. I thought that might be a good model for how to put together something where you're interviewing people from all over the country about US healthcare and what their healthcare is like.
Great. I think it's a great idea. I absolutely do. I think that people, as you know, right now are terrified of even calling the ambulance, because it'll cost them a fortune to get it not even covered under their on their health insurance. So I think it's a great point you make, Karen. Absolutely.
I have a contact here who is a doctor in New York, was a doctor in New York City, and now is a doctor in New Zealand, who might be really interesting to interview to explain the comparisons. Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay, is anyone else?
Well, I don't want to, this is Maggie again. I don't want to, if someone's got their hand raised, I just have the black screen.
Let's make sure, that's great. We'll definitely pick you, but just want to make sure, is there anybody else?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anybody else who wants to
Most people are muted. Oh, okay, Mende wants to speak next. But can Maggie
Good.
go now?
Sure.
It's all right. I'm good.
Mandy's
Okay.
okay. Okay, good.
Okay,
Great.
I
so
did.
so Mendy wants to ask a question. I'm
Sure.
just unmuting her.
Hi,
Go,
everybody. Again, sorry about ground control to Major Tom behind me here. My son did it.
I love it. I think we all need to get out of this world for a little bit. So okay, we're good. We're good.
I spend most of my time out there, Levy.
Love it.
Anyway, I'm with Extinction Rebellion, America, and I have friends who've gone over to do activism in Europe. And they're there now. Couldn't get back when COVID happened, and they're literally camping with people. And 2 out of 4 have applied for citizenship, 1 in Germany and 1 in Sweden, because of how fucking afraid they are, sorry about my French, guys,
Oh, please.
of how serious it would be if they did get the virus. And this idea is permeating. These are people that are like you and like me and over 50 who are like, holy shit, if we did get sick, what would happen? And the impetus being that, since Bernie left the race, Levy, it's not just the, oh, shucky darn, like that whole, it's not
Right.
2016, man. 2016 was, shit, better luck next time. No, he is the reason. Bernie Sanders is the reason people are empowered to go out in the street now for Black Lives Matter. He was the first one who ever put anyone in my town at the time, Seattle. He's the one who stepped aside and let those girls talk.
Yes. Oops, sorry.
At the beginning, and he turned right to the camera, and that's still on YouTube. You can still see it. And he said,
Yep.
what these women are talking about is more important than what I'm talking about today.
Yes.
And it's like full stop.
Agreed.
So when you talk about the sound bites or whatever, and the down the ballot candidates in all the states have won pretty damn close with, except Booker because of all the money that they've given, horse face. Anyway, and so the establishment Democrats are, I just feel like the establishment is holding the keys now, but they absolutely have no way forward without Sanders. Not even if everybody doesn't vote, like even if we all just said we're not going to vote. One of my kids is 24 and she and her partner both have said we are not voting. We voted for Bernie. They've watched the numbers. Kids watch things differently. Kids look at things differently. Our kids, 320 somethings, they are not party members. They don't give a F about the Democrats. Bernie has said in every single speech that he's made that I could even think of everywhere. It was like he was telling everybody, dog whistle, dog whistle, dog whistle. They're going to screw me. They're going to screw you. Please show up. Don't know what to do. Now he's standing there like the gentleman in the room. He's a mensch. He's not going to say to Biden, dude, if you don't vote for Medicare for all, I don't think I can bring people along. And the media is saying that 87% are going to vote for Biden. That's horse shit. And my 20-year-old who just left, who visited me for 2 days, said he and a half dozen of his friends are voting for Kanye West if he's on the ballot. So I'm not even kidding. I mean, I am not even kidding. And I just really want to bring that home. Friends of mine who want to expatriate said they don't even care. Said even in Switzerland, they're giving special narrative because they, on their news channels, and I'm sure Vivian can talk about this, they're talking about what's going on here very differently, Levy. They're talking about us all being practically genocided by our government. And the numbers that are coming out of New Zealand, some of them, friends of ours who do climate change there, who believe the pathogen is the earth fighting back, literally, have said 4 billion people could die of COVID-19 planet-wide. We're not going to have, Black lives aren't going to matter any more than anyone else if all of our senior citizens are dead and babies are dying. So I feel like it's life and death now, and I think we just need to address it that way. And I know some people get uncomfortable. I don't fucking care if they're uncomfortable. My parents are in their 70s. I'm a caregiver for my mom. I see how scared these people are.
Okay,
Can we let
Levi
Great
answer
point.
now?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Do you have an answer to that, Levi?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an answer now for that?
Well, let me just elaborate on it. We know ultimately that this Monday, children who are 77% Black are going back into school in the midst of a pandemic. So it is everything you say. I agree. I think the fundamental question at hand, and this is a long discussion. And you can't tell people or compel people who to vote for. What I can tell you is that Donald Trump is a fascist, and that if we have 4 years of Donald Trump, we will have an environmental disaster like that we have never seen. First Amendment rights being taken away, and on and on. And I think that's people just have to understand that people can make the decision in terms of what they want to do. I am very aware in terms of what the Democratic establishment did, but we are in a very, very serious situation. And what I can say to you is that right now we need to not stay focused on Joe Biden and or Donald Trump. We need to stay focused on the issues that matter most to us and the American public. So that's what I would say to you. And I'm saying that if we can push them to get to, we can get a couple million people to demand a Medicare for all single payer healthcare system. I assure you that Joe Biden will change his tune on Medicare for all. There is no doubt in my mind. He will do that because he'll have to do it. But the problem is ultimately we need to bring people together, and that's very difficult in the midst of all the other problems that people are facing.
Okay, can Lee ask? Can you speak? Yeah, I'm trying to unmute you, Lee, but it's not.
Thank you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Lee, how you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm great. Well, it's great to meet you all virtually. I'm here in Western Massachusetts. I've loved Bernie since college when I was a political science major. Worked for him in 2016. Took my 22-year-old when he was 18 to the Democratic National Convention with Bernie. It was awesome. Anyway, met Levi and Barry in New Hampshire. But what I wanted to focus on, I'm trying to focus on what are our goals and what are the methods to reach them. So I'm taking notes over here. I also don't know the chat room or the chat place you're talking about, so I wanted to ask about that. But I'm wondering if it's a realistic goal or not. Don't hate me, but I'm not a Biden fan at all. But would Joe ever agree to Medicare for all, or would it be more realistic to ask him to agree to affordable health care for all? Because he's just so rooted in his corporate donors. It's a question, not an opinion. It's a question. So I agree with the goal of getting 2 million people to say, Medicare for all. But do we want to tweak that or not? It's just a question. Secondly, what are the methods? How do we pressure Biden? Do we petition? Do we have this public relations campaign? I love the West Virginia idea. I come from a 97% Republican family. I talk to my dad a lot. And I'm totally with you on the country music, even though I'm from Maryland and DC. They're down in North Carolina, my parents. And my dad watches these documentaries. He gets moved. And I'm like, oh, maybe he'll vote for Bernie. And he's just like, no way. He's a socialist.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
But he feels very strongly about fairness. And I'm like, if we can get one conservative talk show host or one news person to kind of like, if my dad was watching Fox News and some conservative was like, yeah, we need Medicare for all, like he might listen more, I have to admit. So I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I love it.
If some people could go to West Virginia and knock on doors and talk and be like, hey, of course they want healthcare. Of course they want affordable healthcare. Of course, they've worked hard, and we're talking about words like patriotism, freedom, hard work. you know, I know I'm a little scattered. I don't want
No,
to
you're
take
not.
up.
No, you're right on. You're right
Yeah.
on. So let me just pick up on one point. Sorry, I'm sorry. Do you want to continue? So I want to pick up on a point. I'm going to go a little bit on, but one of the things is an interesting point. The term, the right to repair. People don't know what the right to repair is. So there, throughout the country right now, in terms of your iPhone, you're not legally entitled to fix your iPhone. Farmers are not legally entitled to fix their computers. They have to go to John Deere and other places. So under the right to repair, it basically says, and you guys can Google this, it says that people have the right to repair their own products. And why is that important? Because that can bring Democrats and Republicans together on a simple issue about the right to repair. And we can use that in terms of the ability to the right to repair our own self in relation to healthcare, education, the environment. So that's one issue I would say to you. I think that's definitely an important point that we really need to delve into, the right to repair. It's a really important point. What I can say to you very clearly is that it doesn't matter in terms of the Affordable Care Act, because again, people can't, it doesn't matter if you have health care, if you can't use your health care because you have a $16,000 deductible, you can't afford the high co-payments, deductibles, and premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. You basically shouldn't even, it doesn't matter if you even have health care. So it's a kind of a ruse, and it's not even legitimate. It's like you may have your card, but you can't do anything with that card because you have to pay out-of-pocket expenses until you have to pay, until you get to this exorbitant level before you actually, your healthcare coverage is important. So I think it's imperative, Lee, for us to continue to push for Medicare for all healthcare. As I said, statistically speaking, 85% of Democrats, 70% of the American public, and 52% of Republicans support a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system. Furthermore, if you guys get a chance, you can Google or go to YouTube and find out when Bernard went to McDowell County, West Virginia, and talked to the more conservative folks, and he got them to change their mind about healthcare, and that and even people were a little sheepish and uncomfortable. So one tough guy who was in the coal mine said, you know what? I'm going to support a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system because I need my family to have healthcare, and I can't afford the high co-payments, deductibles, premiums, and out-of-pocket expenses.
Okay, can Marcia ask a question?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. Levy, thanks for being here too. And everyone, good to meet you virtually. I'm in Nevada, and we've done Dementer. We're taking over the Democratic Party in Nevada.
Congratulations.
County level, Clark. The e-board on the state party is 3/4 progressive now. Before there was 1 of 11.
Wow.
And in Clark County, the centrists resigned recently. They don't work well in the sandbox. It's unity as long as we do what they tell us to. No, we crushed it in Nevada. It was awesome, and we know what happened. So
you did.
I'm representing CD3 at the National Convention. I'm a delegate for Bernie. So we're getting platforms in. I know there's that platform thing. We're doing all we can. So part of it is there's an outside strategy, there's an inside strategy. And Dementer, I'm not doing it for pleasure, but it's the only way we can change the narrative.
100% correct. That was one of the biggest victories in Nevada one could possibly have. And as you said, if in Nevada we can do that, looking to Nevada in terms of what we can do all over the country, I think it's extraordinary. And I applaud you. What you folks are doing is extraordinary. Keep up the great work, and please keep me abreast. And if there's anything I can do, I'm sure other folks can do. We'd love to support you in any way we can.
Can Charmaine have a go? What would you like to say, Charmaine? Can you hear us, Charmaine?
The thing is, I don't understand why they're saying that Bernie lost all these states when we know for a fact that it was rigged. We know that they stole our votes. They switched our votes to Biden. So I don't understand how they keep saying that Bernie lost when I am sure that Biden didn't win a single state. Now, people are enraged about that, okay? And that is where they need to take to the streets by the millions and demand that we get back Bernie.
Any response, Levi?
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate your passion and your energy. Right now, obviously, from Bernard's perspective, we need to ensure that Donald Trump not have another 4 years in the White House. I do appreciate your anger and frustration, as I articulated to you very clearly. The Democratic establishment made it abundantly clear they would not let Bernard Sanders win, and that's why you had a lot of people who, Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar and others, who decided to drop out to ensure the fact that Bernard wouldn't win the Democratic primary.
Okay, Michael, where are you, Michael? Would you like to ask a question? Yeah.
Sure, thank you. Hi, Levi. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, thanks, Levi.
Yeah, please.
So actually, I wanted to, I guess, narrate something, and then I was gonna bounce something to you, Levi, afterwards. This conversation is really, really nice, and it's always nice to be among people who have similar thoughts and similar passions. My name is Michael Ziadat. I work in higher education. I'm in the Chicagoland area. And my family came here from the Middle East during wartime. And my perspective on life is through that lens and has always been through that lens. And that's why I've always identified as a progressive and why I've always loved Senator Sanders' vision, and I've always followed it accordingly. So when I came here, my first vote was for Obama in 2012, and after that I voted for Bernie in the primaries in 2016, and then my vote against Trump as well, and then I voted for Bernie in this year's primary as well. So the passion that you all have, I share regarding Bernie, and I did feel a bruise in my ego twice. And I know a lot of people did. And it's hard not to take it personally. It's hard not to be hurt emotionally by it. But I think something for me personally changed where I redirected my energy and my anger and my passion and my emotion, especially when COVID came around. I had a very specific perspective on the world, and I was trying my best to convince others to share that perspective with me. And I noticed that COVID accelerated everything in the world. Higher education, which is what I work in, online modalities has become part of it. That was inevitable. Hospitals are crashing and falling apart. That was inevitable in this country. People are getting sick and going more into debt. It's just all accelerating, and COVID is causing that acceleration. And everyone in my communities, whether they voted for Bernie or Trump or anyone else, they see that. And I think the focus on the issues to me, has been the most effective communication with my family, with my friends, with my community. And I wanted to emphasize that a lot of people are hurting and have been hurting before Trump, and Trump is a symptom, not the cause. But I think with Trump, a lot of that harm has accelerated even more. And to Levi's point, I think a Trump re-election would devastate the most vulnerable populations in this country and the world, to be honest. And I specifically work in international education. As many of you, I'm pretty sure, hear about rhetoric about ICE all the time, especially on the left. In the news recently, there's definitely been a lot of disruptive guidance, I should say, from ICE regarding international students. I wanted to ask Levi what, I'm pretty sure I know where you and where Senator Sanders and where the progressive movement stands on that issue, but where could that's something that's so important that would protect students' lives, protect immigrants' lives. What could something that we can do to stop this before it's too late. And I know the election is in November, but these are actions that will take effect literally within a few weeks if it happens. People will be deported left and right. And international students contribute to this country's economy. They contribute to this country's culture. And I was hoping to hear anyone's perspective, especially you, Levi, about how we can address this issue before it's too late. And I'm putting a petition in the comments if anyone wants to sign it as well.
Yeah, first of all, absolutely, I want to definitely sign that petition. It's a great question. You know, we have to understand, you know, what's going on regarding the profound level of xenophobia, and you know, and what's going on that in many respects people are feeling. And I know I saw something, you know, in the comment, you know, I don't know, something where it's not, you know, when you deal with irrational behavior, you have to understand where people are coming from, as crazy and insane as it is, in order to understand that. So what we need to do, and you know, is obviously talk directly to our congressmen and congresswomen, but we also have to understand the profound irrational anxiety that people have, or concern that in fact that they are going to lose their jobs as a result of what's going on. And basically what that means ultimately at the end of the day is continuing to support, you know, the most progressive members that we have both in the House as well as the Senate, to stand up and to really highlight that. Because what we were able to show very clearly is that if we could, you know, get in the streets in the midst of a, you know, in terms of you know, a crisis and an epidemic, and people were willing to stand up and demand change when it comes to the police, that same type of effort needs to occur when it comes to, you know, going on with, you know, folks in terms of immigration and xenophobia, what have you. So those are things that really have to, as you said, we have to radically change, because what's happening is that you know, people get exhausted and get tired, and what we need to do is we need to highlight. Most people don't even know what's going on in terms of on this front, because they're so beaten down. Because people, you know, when they did have jobs, and we have record over unemployment, they're working 2 to 3 jobs, barely making ends meet. So right now is an opportunity, because a lot of people are at home and there's record levels of unemployment, to really get people educated and motivated and galvanized in terms of talking about this extraordinarily important you know, issue, and really, you know, take hold very clearly about the, you know, the xenophobia that is permeating, you know, our country and our world.
Thank you.
Vivian, we lost your sound. Lost your sound.
So, so I'd muted you, not me. There's a toolbar at the bottom of the screen, and it includes some icons. And in the middle, sort of in the middle, is a thing called chat. And if you press on that, you should be able to see the chat that's going on between everybody, and you can type your questions in. Okay, sorry.
Right. Exactly, and you know, and if people, you know, really is an opportunity. I want people to have confidence and feel, you know, if people disagree with these issues, this is an opportunity to have, you know, a frank and serious, you know, debate. I know, you know, people have said, you know, listen, you know, Biden is, you know, is this and that, he's not as bad as Trump, or he's as bad as Trump, whatever he said. That's fine. Let's have that discussion, because it's critically important that we get that and understood what's going on, so we can have that serious and substantive discussion and debate and figure out what's going on and where we're at in this process. Because what I hope to do is to have different people kind of, you know, be involved and start these dialogues and having as many questions and discussions as possible, so we can push these issues, and then I can bring all these issues to different people, you know, in Congress and the Senate, whatever, and talk about the fact of which we have a real opportunity to have very unique discussions that I don't think we're going to have in other places. I want to give people the opportunity to express themselves, and again, also go on their own and start having these Zoom calls, and then we're going to come back together. So, you know, Michael, when you're talking about, if we can get 10 or 15 people to talk about exactly the issue you're talking about very quickly, move on those issues, bring that stuff directly, and then ultimately get it over to congressmen and congresswomen, that's a way that we can have very, you know, quick discussions about this and really move, you know, on the various topics that people, you know, have and are concerned about. So again, I really want to hear from people, and please, I don't want people to be shy. Ask any tough questions. There are no right or wrong. questions or answers to what people have to say, happy to discuss it. We're not here to to judge. We can have our difference of opinion, but I really want to hear people talk about the different issues that they're concerned with.
I wonder if Ashi would like to speak to us for a moment. Are you there, Ashi? I'm trying to unmute you. There you go. Can you
Nice.
speak up, Ashi? No?
Oh, great. Oh, my goodness. He's right there. Who would have believed it?
I don't seem to be able to unmute you, Ashi. Can you do it?
Yeah. You got to turn your button on, Ashi.
Okay.
And tell this guy to speak up. He's got to speak up. Tell him he needs to speak up. That's Sanders' character. He's the guy who does not talk. He's a man of few words. What happened, Ashi? Okay, here we go.
Okay, hi. Thank you so much.
We can hear you great.
Me? Okay, hi, Levi.
Levy,
Hi, everybody.
close enough.
I have so many things I want to say, but
please.
Touching back on what Shamim said about Bernie, there's a huge group of Bernie supporters, and we refuse to support Biden. I feel that when Bernie ran, he exposed the system to us, and we ain't going back to sleep now. So, we are motivated, we are passionate, and we are going to fight for Medicare for all, free public college, Green New Deal, all the policies that Bernie said. So on that note, I live in New Jersey, and our Bernie's campaign chair here was Larry Ham. And he recently was, he ran for Senate in New Jersey, and he was defeated by crooked Cory Booker. And sadly, because Larry is great. But Larry was telling us about how when Bernie suspended his campaign, he did not do it lightly. He didn't do it lightly. So he had to be persuaded, I guess. And our guy here. And Larry said that during the convention, we will maybe hear more about that, why Bernie had to suspend his campaign, which I'm interested in hearing about. But as far as I'm concerned, I will always fight for Bernie. Never know what's going to happen till November. And I have Dem exited. So I'm not going to go back to the Democrats. And I think it's rigged. So I will, I'll try and fight as hard as possible for all of Bernie's, yes, Tony, policies, but that's all I wanted to say. Oh, and I wanted to say one more thing about Medicare for All. United Nurses Union has a toolkit. You can sign on to it, and they will, and you can, there's a resolution that you can send letters to the editors of publications, and also you can write to the legislator to support Medicare for All. That's it.
Tell the guy to give me a call. I haven't heard from him in a while. All right.
Thank
so
you very much.
I appreciate your perspective. I think that at the end of the day, I think I guess it's really critically important that you communicate, like you said, on Medicare for All. But and this is a discussion, and I really guess I want to hear from people their thoughts are. I don't think people understand the gravity of what means if we have another 4 years of Donald Trump. I don't think people understand that.
I don't want 8 years of Biden.
I'll break it down. Let me give you a little history lesson. This is important to understand this, okay? In 1928 and 1930, the communists and the socialists decided that in fact that they were going to break apart and not come together. And what happened? We had Adolf Hitler. So we had Adolf Hitler. Do the research. So what I'm saying to you guys, this is serious stuff. And while Donald Trump is not Adolf Hitler, he is a fascist. He's a straight up fascist. He is an absolute and utter fascist. So I want people to be very, very clear and understand that. And believe me, I understand. I saw full well in terms of what happened, in terms of how the Democratic establishment, stole the whole entire thing from Bernard Sanders.
Yes.
But right now, we're at a time basically that we can have, can hold your nose, deal with Biden, and then Bernard can work with Biden. But when you're dealing with Donald Trump, you're not working with Donald Trump right now. You're not doing it. And Trump has thousands of other people in terms of judges that is going to make life living hell in various areas of the court of law. So all I'm telling you guys is that I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I'm telling you very clearly that if Donald Trump comes in, he already is the worst president in modern American history, but he'll be worse than that. So that's my pitch. I'm not going to tell people how to vote because I think that's counterproductive, but I'm just giving you my thoughts again. And remember, 1928, 1930, if the communists and the socialists had come together, we would not have Adolf Hitler. Right. Okay. Next one.
They had shot him during the war.
Okay.
What?
Can I ask? Oh, sorry. Have you finished?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Joanna to speak now?
Oh, hi. A lot of good subject matter here. I just wanted to say hi to Levi again. We met at the People's
People's Summit. Yeah.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
we
Absolutely.
there was a great after event discussion. And the people that were there are still very Bernie oriented, the people that I was with. One person I know in Chicago went to Trump. And so there are people that have to know what's at stake. And I'm starting to come around a little bit more to understand that, if Bernie could still walk with his head up and try to work with Biden, then how can we not follow in his steps to try to see if things can change for us? As far as Medicare for all, fair money, housing, we can't just sit back and let him do all the heavy work. It's got to be on us. And while we can't have discussions and Zoom calls, we can start small and we can use what we have available, go back to our Facebook, join up on Twitter. It's just we have to kind of get the word out about what we want. And I feel that maybe a grassroots attempt to call the DNC and threaten our vote and say, look,
Absolutely.
you can't have our vote. It's not promised. We are Bernie people, and we do require that Biden come around to Medicare for all. That's the biggie, that's the one. And because I saw him speak to Adi Barkan, and that broke my heart, the way he spoke to Adi and said, I'm not for Medicare for all. He took that stance. And to be honest with you, I'm not about Biden, but we have to try to at least keep our head up and be positive. We, like Bernie says, I tell everybody, despair is not an option. COVID is not going to make us be despair. Things that are coming our way, we've got to see the bright side of our energy and our passion and what we want to work towards. We can't put it down. We've got to put down the gauntlet as far as our vote. You can make that call, put it on your speed dial, put your rep and the and senators on speed dial, put the DNC on your speed dial. Let's start calling every day and say, we're here, we have a voice, and we mean what we say. We cannot be squelched. There's a reason why we want Medicare for all. There's a reason, and just scare the shit out of them. Just scare them. There are already articles that say young Black voters are not in it for Biden. Nothing is promised. I think it was Sean Combs, P. Diddy, came out and said, our votes are not are not promised. Charlemagne the God. Hey, you know, what after what Biden said?
Yep.
Well, it's the
True.
same for us too. It could be the same for us. Our votes are not promised. So that was just my little angle, that
Yeah.
we can't just think that, you know, we're going to get the boot on our neck either. That's not an option. We're going to fight, and it's up to us to put our voices out. Share with your friends on your Facebook. Let people understand what Medicare for All entails. It's got to be a grassroots all over again. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, it's great. It's a great point. Yeah, just elaborate, and I think you hit it on the head. You know, the point is ultimately we need to empower ourselves, and we need to not allow people to take us for granted. And I think that's, and with social media, you know, and hashtags, we can get things to go viral. But that comes down to the fact of understanding marketing and messaging, and we can talk more about it. But it is not as difficult as one thinks it is in terms of going about that. So when you get to a certain term, and I've thought about different terms that we can use, we can really do this. And I'm just thinking right now, strategy about just a way, so literally this is how it would start, and I can go there. It would start up by saying, we would spend a minute, we would talk into our phone, and we say, I am not Joe. This is the way you start. You say, I am not Joe. I am a low income person ultimately who is a single parent, female headed household, blah, 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 blah. I can't afford the co-payments, high co-payments, deductibles, premiums, out of pocket expenses. I'm not Joe, on and on and on. So just that I figured out exactly how to do it. So if we do this well, and we literally use that terminology, and we just get thousands and thousands of people to throw that into Joe Biden's Twitter page, and the hashtag is I am not Joe. So before, I know I'm giving you guys that, but I implore you, I'm saying it right now, please don't take that yet and run with it until we work with it. But I think it is the message we need to say. The word is I am not Joe, and then we highlight it very clearly, and we can do it very, very well. And I think we can really, really, really make progress on that issue.
Fantastic. Can I ask Anita to ask her question now, please?
Hi, Levy.
Hi.
A couple of things. I was a Bernie delegate in 2016. I'm a Bernie delegate again for 2020 for Colorado. And I hope it will encourage people. I think we maybe even have a couple on here that might be, that we are working together. You know, you have the campaign, right? That is a couple of Bernie staffers, but then we also have our grassroots group, and we are strategizing. We know we're not going to get Bernie elected, we know that, but around getting the message out. And one thing I mentioned there, we have a mask that we're making that is being made by a company, and it's got Medicare for All, and it's by a union company. It's in Denver, so you know.
Didn't Alexandria Ocasio? Did AOC had that mask? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where hers is from, but I mean, we have a company here that is making them.
Fantastic.
And it's going to be $7 a piece, and it's going to have the union button on it. But anyhow, I think it was Ashley, right? That was saying, the Dem exit and feeling. I don't remember who it was, Marcia, I don't remember. Anyhow, and so many times I've asked myself, can I fill that circle in for Biden? Because just, all the things that we've talked about that we are so upset about and how hard it is. And the other night I watched a documentary on the women's suffrage movement. It was a 2-hour documentary, and it blew me away. I mean, I knew, basic history of it, but to see this for 2 hours and to see that it took over 70 years for a woman to get the vote. And I know we don't have 70 years. I'm not even trying to compare that, but the tenacity that they had, that they didn't give up. And so that reinvigorated me. I mean, I'm on the state central committee, so I still have to, kind of do Democratic stuff anyhow, but it did invigorate me. And it really brought to mind, one of the women that was one of the main suffrage leaders She worked with Wilson. That's how she finally got him, because at first he wasn't even in favor of the women's vote. Then he finally said, okay, well, I'm in favor of it. We'll let states' rights, each state choose if they're going to do it. And then she finally got him to come around. So I go to the thing, I think messaging, what you keep talking about, Levy, because I've seen with people that mine's downstairs, my mask is downstairs, it says Medicare for All, is our messaging not just on Medicare for All or any of these issues, but on getting to people to vote. The way we say things is going to make a huge difference, because we cannot shame people into it. That will not work. The thing when people say, vote blue no matter who, or when they say, oh, do you want Trump in, or do you care about the Supreme Court? That just pushes people further away. It would push me away. So I think it's so important for us to find the way. I mean, first is to listen. And that's, again, your point too, Levy, is that when we're speaking to someone who says, I will not vote, someone who said that their 2 adult kids are not going to vote, we cannot shame them into voting. We can't say, you want Trump. Uh-oh, something happened. So I think our messaging, I don't know, is that Sue?
Can we let Levy answer, and maybe it's...
We have a minor crisis in the house, but we'll resolve it.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
All right.
You're doing so well.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to, I've taken too much time here. But again, I think
Anita, can we leave that? Maybe it's your thing.
Yes, Sue, can you mute yours right down below? Sue? Sound like a car alarm we have.
Okay,
right.
we're okay now.
Good.
Thanks.
Sorry, you were saying, please say.
Okay. Let's see, where was it? Yeah, our messaging, and I'm saying all the things that we can't say. So I think it would be great if we can come with ideas of what we can say.
Yep.
Not the shaming, not the blue note, all of that crap we cannot say.
Yeah.
So ideas on, first is to listen, tell me, one thing I did hear someone say one time that I thought was good was like, well, can you tell me what you think a Biden presidency would look like and what a Trump presidency would look like?
Right.
Can you tell me what you think each of those will look like? Something along that line.
I love it. I love it.
People's ideas on that. Think about the women's suffrage. Women at that time who were supposed to be home and pregnant, 20,000 of them marched in the streets in New York in, I think it was 1917. So thanks.
Yeah, if you want to put together that documentary, if you want to type it in the screen, that'd be great. And you're 100% correct. I'll let it go at this. The way you change behavior is, number one, is you listen to it and you say simple things like, I hear you. See, psychologically, what you need to do is you need to empower people. And we're all kind of conditioned to beat down and try to humiliate and degrade and be condescending to whoever it is. But that's not the way in which you get people to change their mind. What you do is you listen to them. And as you were saying, is the fact you say, okay, let me see if I understand this. So you're stating that, in fact, okay, you would prefer to have Donald Trump as compared to Joe Biden. Why? Articulate to me what the difference is in terms of how you look at this thing, and why do you think that we can have 4 more years of Trump? Because if we do, then if we have Trump instead of Biden, we only have 4 more years of Trump, and then we have 8 years of Biden. But the point is, ultimately, within Trump could potentially have other family members, and then ultimately 8 years. So it's interesting to hear from people, right? And then and that's how we learn, and we just make the certain decisions. The more and more we yell and scream at people, then we are condescending and belittling and degrade people. The more and more people turn away, and they're not willing to listen.
Okay, can I ask Crystal to ask her question? Can you hear me, Crystal?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, I hear you, Crystal.
Hi, Levy. It's good to meet you.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Thanks for.
I have a couple of questions for you. First, you had mentioned that the Democratic establishment made it abundantly clear that Bernie was not going to be allowed to continue, and therefore Buttigieg, Klobuchar, et cetera, stepped down. But why did they get behind Biden? What do you know about that? What can you share with us by why Biden was the chosen one this time around?
Well, it's because there's a thing called Barack Obama. That was basically it. Barack Obama had made it very, very clear that Joe Biden was going to be, it couldn't be Pete Buttigieg because Pete Buttigieg was gay, and there was no way that Pete Buttigieg was going to do anything in terms of the Deep South. So that's kind of what it was, you know. And Klobuchar had all of her problems in terms of being a DA and all the stuff that she does. So she was done. Didn't have anybody. So ultimately, that was it. You know, Joe Biden, you know, was clearly is not articulate. You know, lacks focus of any sort whatsoever. But the reality is that, you know, Obama, in many ways, kind of had his legacy on the line. He you know, Joe Biden was his friend, and it was abundantly clear he was going to ensure that Joe Biden become, you know, the presumptive nominee, because from Barack Obama's perspective is that was his guy because of the fact that he couldn't. I mean, you know, Barack Obama was a fan of Buttigieg, but he realized that Buttigieg was never going to go anywhere in the South.
Thanks. My other question has to do with animal cruelty, and I've seen you post quite a bit of information about veganism. So what I don't see is people talking much about what caused us to be in this COVID situation, right? The animal cruelty that goes on with wet markets, industrial meat farming in this country. Absolutely. What can we do to change that so we're not in this position again a few years down the line? You know, we saw it with AIDS, we saw it with SARS, et cetera.
That's a great point. So there's a person named Darcel who was an expert. She's actually studying to be a lawyer. She's in law school right now in New Zealand, and knows this stuff pretty well. So I'll just take a quick shot at it, and Darcel can, you know, if Darcel wants to elaborate, you know, whatever, please. But
we're getting short of time, Levi.
How much time? Because I know there was a couple of people who definitely wanted to talk.
Yeah, there are. We've got 4 minutes left, and I'd like to get at least
4
one more
minutes. All right, let me do this if I could. If you know, I'm happy to answer that question offline. Are you okay with that? And then I'll elaborate that, and maybe we can talk to Darcel. And you just give me your email address. I can send you that information. If maybe we can even have a talk, because I really want to talk. It's a great issue, and unfortunately, I can't even begin to put that together in more than 8 minutes.
How would you like me to get my email address to you?
Just
put it in chat.
Yeah,
okay.
Put it right in the chat. That'd be wonderful. I'm happy to talk. It's a great topic. We talk about the environment. We talk about all the different dynamics. We're making tremendous progress now. Actually, even Republicans are understanding the disaster and we need to radical change the way we think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I would love to be a part of that if I might as well. If I may send my email as well, if that's all right. This is Maggie.
Absolutely.
Okay, send anyone who wants to put their email address in chat.
Okay, we have 3 minutes. I know that.
Can we ask Mayo if he wants to put his question?
Yep,
Mayo.
Mayo?
Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, what's up, Levi? How you doing?
Absolutely. Great.
I hate to be the party pooper, so to speak, but you know me well, Levi. And also, I was at the People's Summit as well as been a DNC delegate 2016 and a PDA representative, Progressive Democrats of America. So, bottom line is what I'm trying to get at is this idea of scaring people that has been said already, and also shaming folks who feel like they're disenchanted with the system. We need to remember that this fight, the last time progressives have put up a fight, well, actually they didn't put up a fight, they were attacked, like we often attack other nations. The last time that progressives had any voice enough to fight was FDR's reign, and in '44 in Chicago, how the establishment of the party used money and power to turn overnight a nomination of our then Vice President Henry Wallace to Harry Truman. And since then, the only time we've ever had a possible progressive in office is JFK killed off, Bobby killed off, and we can keep going. So this is not something that's new. It's not a new fight, and we'll be stupid and we'll just quite ignorant to think that this is just a fight against the Republicans. this whole Trump thing, and I'm nowhere Trump sympathize or maybe in any kind of way, but this whole idea that if he comes in, oh, it's the end of the world, but we can keep, we're going to be scared every 4 years by some Republicans. The Republicans
Okay,
are,
thank you,
I
Mayo.
don't want to use, real quick, I don't want to use they're not, the Republicans are just selfish, and cruel people. However, my side will not keep scaring me to vote in a certain way. And the last point I want to bring up is that, again, I'm an African American, and I know what slavery has done. And it's scary when a party feels like they own people's votes. It's scary, and that's what goes on, and they take it for granted, and I feel like the sentiment of systemic racism, some of it comes from our party as Black
Absolutely.
people continue. So we take a lot lightly, and I think that that's something that a lot of young Black folks feel. They understand that's there, and you can't blame them for feeling that way. But I'll digress. I can go longer on this.
I love what you're saying.
No,
Mayo.
Maya, we
Right.
haven't got time. Can Levy answer that, please?
Yeah, but we also one other person who wanted to. I know one person definitely wanted to. Navid wanted to. So can you get Navid on? I'm happy because I could talk to Mayo. I'll talk to Mayo more in depth afterwards, or whatever. But
Okay,
can we get
Navid,
Navid?
where
I'll
are
have.
you?
I'm right here. No,
Yeah.
I just had a comment or question, and like the supporters, Biden supporters are very different animals than Bernie supporters, and I feel like Biden had, like, maybe I'm not in the right channels, but he's not really speaking to Bernie supporters to get their votes, I feel.
Right.
And
Definitely not.
I have, I've argued with like establishment Democrats for years. So then I finally decided to follow Biden to see what he's saying. And none of my friends who I've argued with in the years have shared his posts or anything. So I don't really know what Biden stands for or even his supporters, other than, not wanting Trump or not wanting Republicans in office. So it's just more of observation.
No, I think
I don't know if there's an answer for it or. Anyway,
I think you're right. I think that the problem ultimately it's about status quo. It's not about anything substantial. We look at the issue, as I stated, back to Medicare. Maybe at 60 years old, you're still going to have high co-payments, deductibles, premiums, out-of-pocket expenses. Not going to be anything significant to address the real environmental degradation. So there's a lot of issues. You're absolutely right. So it's not going to be anything radically insignificant. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a situation where Trump, where we're literally going to have a fascist in the White House, and we need to push Biden significantly if he's able to be in the White House. And we need to really push him at a deep way. And that's kind of where we're at in that process.
Yeah, I feel like he's not really changing with the times. Like, there's so many things that just happened recently, and he's not really even like, I don't know, maybe I'm not listening on the right channels to see what the other argument is. But
You're listening to the right channel.
Basically.
There's really not much there. And let me just elaborate. I'm happy to talk to you more in depth about that. But I just want to talk about what Mayo said, because my point is basically, at the end of the day, is that you're absolutely right. It's not about shaming. It's about the fact of stating what the reality of the situation is. And it doesn't really matter that, in fact, we have a situation right now that, sorry, somebody else is calling my police also. But the gist of it is basically, in my view, got to get Biden in, and then we need to immediately demand, change with Biden. When Biden gets in, we need to be marching in. When we're marching, we're not going to get beaten up, at the same level that we were in terms of Trump. It's going to be a different scenario in terms of civil rights and standing up. So that's kind of what's going on procedurally. So we need to work as hard. If Biden's in, we need to push him to the nth degree, do everything he's done. But at this point in time, we're not focused right now on Biden. We're focused on a Medicare for all, single-payer health care system. That's the number one issue we need to be focused on and push that envelope, because we have the American public, but we need to get our marketing and messaging in order, and we can really do some significant work.
Okay, thanks so much. Do you want to say just a few words to finish this up, Levy?
Unless we're missing anybody else, I'm happy to have somebody else give the last, if they're missing a question they want, or then I'm happy to say it. Is there anybody else who's missing this? So I don't want to, somebody who's missing a question. We're all good?
I think we're all good.
Okay.
No one's got their hand
Okay,
up.
great. All right. First of all, let me thank you, Vivian, and for the tremendous work. This is not easy navigating a situation in terms of the Zoom calls. This is the first time she did, and I think you did a great job. And I want to thank everybody else for getting on this call and expressing their feelings and emotions. This is tough stuff. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety about what's going on. And we're going to have an opportunity. I want to try to do this at least, figure out Vivian's schedule, because she is in Sweden right now. It's only what time? What is it, Vivian? 1:34 in the morning there.
1:35 a.m. Yeah.
1:35 a.m. So ultimately, she needs to get her beauty sleep. But nonetheless,
I need a
the
great
fact
deal
is,
of
I'd like to, if people can put in any subject matters they want to talk about and address, and if people can start the process of doing Zoom calls on their own, and then we're going to bring more people into this equation and talk about a lot of different issues, and then we'll work on directly. If people want to, talk about marketing and messaging, people want to get involved in it, but I do think we have a real issue in terms of using simple terms such as, I am not Joe. I think that's going to work very well, and we can do this. I think we can use this actual terminology in a way to really push the envelope regarding Joe Biden, and a lot of moderates don't really understand why Medicare for all is so extraordinarily important in people's lives.
Okay, thanks so much for everybody who took part.
Thank
you can carry on putting questions and email addresses if you want to do that in the chat.
And then Vivian, in terms of this recording, we'll figure out how, if people we'll probably be able to get this over. We can figure out how to truncate it or whatever. So we'll figure that out. So if anybody has suggestions on how to go about Zoom, let us know, because this is a new process and we want to be able to get this out to other people who weren't able to be on the call.
Okay, thanks so much to everybody. And we'll
Thank you guys so much.
Over now. And thank you for getting back from your walk, Levi.
Yes, unscathed.
Unscathed, safely, exactly.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.